Hey folks, this is Jumpfingly here to talk about Demonology Warlock, talents and playstyle in World of Warcraft, patch 7.3.5 for Antorus, the Burning Throne. The reputable Knot does a great job explaining the new build in his video, which I've linked in the description below. But since it's no longer a meme build almost a year later into the expansion, I figured I'd give it a more up-to-date rundown. So if you're interested in any specific timestamps in this video, they're in the description, but otherwise, let's get into it. So Demonology Warlock, in this expansion at least, has been working off a pretty simple priority system, and it looks something like this. For the most part, you're going to be building shards, and you're going to be spending them on Hand of Gul'dan, which summons imps for you. You also want to be using your shards on your other demon summons whenever they're off cooldown. So these include Call Dreadstalkers, or Dogs, and Summon Doomguard, or DG. And when you have the talents for them, you can summon Grimoire of Service, Felguard, and Darkglare. You're going to be using Demonic Empowerment to buff every demon pack after every summon. You're going to be applying and keeping Doom, our only dot on the target. And you're going to be using our artifact ability, TKC, as soon as it is off cooldown, as well as our Felguard special ability, Fellstorm. And you're going to be life tapping when you're running out of mana. So before we talk about the new build, I want to give a shout out to the old build, which we were using back in the Tomb days. This is going to be using Demonic Calling, Hand of Doom, and Impending Doom. So how this build works is you're going to be spamming Shadow Bolt on single target or Demon Wrath on 3 or more stacked cleave targets in order to generate shards. And this build makes your life easier in a lot of ways. Demonic Calling gives you free Dreadstalkers casts now and then, which saves you 2 precious soul shards. And Hand of Doom reapplies Doom for you for free, which saves you those precious GCDs. This build has been outclassed on single target by the new build, but it's still really strong on fights with stacked cleave, like in Tauren High Command or Mythic Plus Trash, where you know that ads are going to live long enough for Hand of Doom's Impending Doom to proc multiple times. So now let's talk about the new build, or the meme build, which uses Shadowy Inspiration and Power Trip. So now, instead of spamming Shadow Bolts for shards, you're going to be alternating Demonic Empowerment and instant Shadow Bolts. So you're going to do a full cast of DE, and then throw out an instant Shadow Bolt in order to generate shards. But why would you do this? You know, even with Power Trip, you're still going to be a lot more inefficient at generating shards than just doing Shadow Bolts back to back. Well, the key to this build's success is our last golden trait in our artifact, which was introduced in 7.2, which is Thalkeel's Ascendance, or TKA. This causes each complete cast of DE to have a chance to cause a splash of damage from each of your currently summoned demons. So this gives a lot more value to DE because now it can do damage. So in order to justify casting a lot more DEs, we're going to be combining it with Power Trip in order to not fall too far behind with generating shards. So this build introduces 2 new challenges compared to the old build. 1, it requires you to refresh Doom manually. So if you've gotten the habit of Hand of Doom auto reapplying the debuff for you, you're just going to have to break the habit. 2, and this is the big one, it drains your mana really fast. Shadow Bolt spam only took 6% of your max mana per bolt, right? But DE Weaving takes 12% of your max mana per 2 casts. So that means on average, just to generate 5 shards with DE Weaving only, you're going to be using 36% of your max mana. So that means you're going to have to life tap a lot more than reasonable, or if you've gotten used to other Warlock specs. The good part of these problems, though, is that both the normal Doom spell and life tap are instant casts, which means that you can use them while moving. And on top of the instant cast Shadow Bolts that you get from Shadowy Inspiration, it means that you have a bit of mobility to work with that you can use to cast productive spells. So this is a good lead-in into talking about optimization of this build, which mostly involves how we can generate more shards and get more demons out as fast as possible. So when applied to movement phases, this comes down to what we can do while moving that we really don't want to do while standing still, since that would waste time that we would rather use for summoning demons. Your priority list for instant casts while moving in single target situations will be any instant summon demons, which you should be using off cooldown anyway. So these are Grimoire Service, Felguard, and Doomguard. Refreshing Doom, life tapping to full mana, so at most 3 times. Instant Shadow Bolt from Shadowy Inspiration, and last of all, Demon Wrath. It generates shards way too slowly and does such little damage that it's really our worst option. These first 4, and maybe just a few seconds of Demon Wrath, are more than enough to cover just about any significant movement you'll deal with in Antorus while still being expected to damage the boss. So if you find yourself Demon Wrathing for extended periods of time with nothing else to cast while still running to your destination, you either planned your movement poorly or you aren't using your movement options well. A good example is Very Mathras. Here I know I'm going to have to move to the other marker when the boss casts Dark Fissure, so I refrain from life tapping until I know I have to move. Then I double tap. Once I get over there, I'm full mana and I'm ready to keep chain casting. Similar example in this situation, I run myself low on mana. I do life tap once and refresh Doom before going, but I still am low enough on mana that's justifiable to use 2 life taps as I'm moving, and once I'm over there I keep chain casting. This next example is done a bit more poorly. As you can see, I spent a bit too much time casting and empowering imps, and as a result I didn't use enough life taps, so I'm forced to use them after I move, and that's just a bit unoptimal. The opening rotation for both the old and new build is pretty simple. You're going to be using all your large cooldowns and building up a nice juicy Thalkeel's consumption, and then you're going to be transitioning into your normal rotation. So 3 seconds before pull, you're going to DE in order to empower your currently summoned Felguard pet. Then you're going to pre-pot immediately after that, and at time equals 0, throw your instant shadow bolt at the target. Then you Doom, and usually use your summon pet's Fellstorm at this point. This puts you at 4 shards, and you use them to use Grimoire of Service Felguard, summon Doomguard, and call Dreadstalkers. You empower all 3 of those with a single DE, then build up to 4 shards, use Hand of Gul'dan, empower those, and TKC with all of those demons. The opening for the old build is very similar, except to build up to 4 shards, you just chain cast Shadow Bolts instead of casting DE Shadow Bolt. So now let's talk about talent choices. Rows 45 and 75 are situational, and so they won't be covered here. And most of the choices in 15, 30, and 60 are locked in, depending on which build you're doing. The old build in the darker red, or the new build in gray. Keep in mind that a lot of these choices are related to raid combat, and in Dungeons and Mythic Plus, a lot of these concepts go right out the window, like a sustained single target boss. Shadowflame does okay damage, but is difficult to fit into our current rotation, and Implosion does pretty good burst AoE damage in a snatch, but the problem is it sacrifices our high single target damage, which comes from our Wild Imp's Firebolts, in order to do burst AoE, which is a niche that a lot of other classes can fulfill a lot easier than having to take this talent. So both of these don't work quite well with the builds that we're using. We don't use Soul Harvest because it's bad, sorry. And also because Hand of Doom and Power Trip are in the same row, and those are parts of the previous builds. We take Grimoire of Service in row 90 because Grimoire of Synergy is only okay when there's 4 or more consistently stacked targets for an entire fight, and Grimoire of Supremacy loses out damage overall because our Felguards and the summoned Felguard from Service do quite a bit of damage, both single target and AoE. For level 100, we go with Soul Conduit 90% of the time, just because more shards is more damage. Demon Bolt does less damage overall, although it's very pretty, and Summon Dank Glare, it's a big blue eyeball, and is only pretty good if you can have Doom on 2 or more targets consistently. It gains a bit more value on fights with 2 spread targets like Dogs and Covenant and Taurus, but overall, 90% of the time, you're taking Soul Conduit. And hey, would you know it, that's the end of this video. So, thank you very much for watching. I hope you learned a bit of something about Demonology if you stayed all the way through. Big shout out to Motoko and the Warlock Discord for reviewing some of my information. I'll be providing a link to the Warlock Discord server below, where you can come say hello to probably the largest community of Warlock players in this game. I plan on making a shorter video soon about frequently asked questions and other general concepts about Demonology. But in the meantime, leave a comment if you have any other questions, and leave a like if you liked the video. And once again, thanks for watching, dude. Woo!